Good morning, everyone. My name is Axel. I'm a third year studying Bachelor of Medical Science Honours and Doctor of Medicine. And fun fact about myself, because I'm supposed to say one, is I know all the good food spots on campus, so let me know if you have any inquiries about that. Cool. So today, it is my great pleasure to host the Get Started at UNSW official welcome. I'd like to give a warm welcome to all our students, parents, caregivers, and speakers who are here today, and extend that welcome to all of you who are joining us remotely via the live stream. I would like to show my respects and acknowledge the Bedegal, Gadigal, and Ngunnawal people who are the traditional custodians of the land of which UNSW campus stand, and of elders past, present, on which this event takes place. Today is a very exciting day because you are the first group of commencing students for 2023 who are joining us on campus in the Sir John Clancy Auditorium. We thought it would be a good opportunity to meet you all here in Clancy today, because you'll be here again with your faculty welcomes during O Week. So today is all about you, and we have lots of speakers and current students who can't wait to meet you. I'd also like to welcome those students who are joining us online and all the parents and caregivers here today. Please also make sure that you've scanned the QR code on the screen and registered your attendance for today, if you didn't do this already when you came in. Cool, so here's what you can expect from today. During this morning's welcome, you'll hear from keynote university speakers who are here to support you on your journey and ensure you thrive at university. Once you've met our experts, you'll be able to submit for our live Q&A panel. As a student, I know firsthand how new and how overwhelming sometimes things can be. So I really want to encourage you to take this opportunity to ask questions, and feel free to submit them via the Slido as well. After the welcome, students who are on campus will head outside for the official launch of Start at UNSW Peer Mentoring. You will meet your peer mentor for a walk around campus and to meet other new students from your faculty. Peer mentors are senior students who have walked in your footsteps, so be sure to pick their brains about university life. Okay. Those students who are virtually joining us will be able to jump on a Zoom for Community Connect session, and that's also with a peer mentor as well. For parents and caregivers who are here on campus and online, there will be a session for you with a student support advisor who will run you through tips, expectations, and advice on how to support students at university. That session will start at the end of this welcome event. At 12:30, students will have lunch on the science lawn with your peer mentoring groups, and the mentors will run you through some fun activities, and you'll have a chance to check out some ARC stalls as well. Parents and caregivers will have refreshments here in the Clancy foyer. Now, without further ado, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you our first speaker, the head of UNSW Student Life, Jessica LeQuinn.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Axel. I would also like to echo Axel and extend my respects to the traditional custodians of the land where our campus stands, and acknowledge elders past and present, as well as any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who are present here today. My name is Jessica LeQuinn, and it's my great privilege to be the head of student life here at UNSW. It's my team's responsibility to ensure your transition and time at UNSW is smooth and that you feel supported at every step of the way. Starting university can be challenging, overwhelming, and also exciting. The purpose of today is to make you feel confident as you embark on your new journey as a UNSW student. There are many supports and services at UNSW who are here to help you thrive and help you when you experience difficulties. Today you will hear from them so that you know where to go when you need support. Today is also about making your first connections. Connecting with like-minded students is one of the best parts of being at UNSW, and by the end of today, you'll have a support group with other new students before you've even started your studies. Our senior peer mentors will be on hand throughout the day to help build these connections for you, and you might even want to make plans to meet up with each other during O Week, which is next week. So be bold, be brave, have fun, and welcome to UNSW.
Thank you so much, Jessica, for that warm welcome. I'd now like to introduce Michelle Sanders from the UNSW Equitable Learning Service.
Hi. How's everyone going? Nervous? No. So I'm Michelle, and I'm the team lead of Equitable Learning Services. So ELS is a service that supports students who are living with a disability, a mental health condition, a chronic health condition, and basically we support students throughout the course of their studies. So you've got to have medical documentation to support a or a few conditions, but basically we support you with what we call a learning plan, and that will, unless you've got a temporary condition, that will carry you through your studies with what we call adjustments. So I'll go through some of that in a second, but the reason we exist is, and some of you who have just come from high school who are living with a disability or some kind of health condition might have already had adjustments throughout your HSC, so some of you might be familiar with the process. But others of you might not have even heard of what we do. And so the purpose of our service is to provide an opportunity for students to have really the same access and equity to your studies and reach your academic potentials, despite you managing a few extra challenges in the form of a disability or a health condition of some kind. So that's sort of the aim, is to sort of even out the playing fields with other students. Our bread and butter is what we call reasonable or educational adjustments, which is basically just like an alteration in an assessment or an exam. So for example, you might need extra time on your exams, maybe an extra 15 minutes per hour or something. You might need a little bit of extra time on an assessment. I mean, who doesn't anyway? But you get my drift. You can officially have that if that's something that is going to make a difference to you and help you achieve the goal of the assessment, and then obviously ultimately your academic goals. So that's sort of, I mean, there could be also things like a different format of a document or something like that. There's many different types of adjustments, and that's something that once you have our first session with one of our advisors, we look at your condition, we talk to you about the impact it's having on your studies, and then together in a dialogue we come up with a set of adjustments and a learning plan that you can then have term by term. You can give it to your teachers, and then your adjustments will be implemented, essentially. One thing I do want to say is that we are a private and confidential service. A student is you're only obligated to disclose a condition one place on campus. We obviously want it to be with us. And then as far as faculty is concerned, they don't need to know any conditions. They just need to know that you're registered with ELS and that you have these adjustments in a learning plan. Disclosure is your choice, but you just need to know you're not obligated to disclose anywhere but with our service. So that's a really important thing. The other thing I want to say is that ELS or these services at uni are mandated services. We follow very closely under the Discrimination Disability Act. We're informed by those obligations, and that's how we practice as a service. So it's important, if you didn't already know that's what we're guided by. And just a couple more things, just to let you know the numbers. We have around 2,500 students that are registered with our service. You know, they're not all active in the one term, but that's a lot of students. So we see a lot of different things walk through our doors. There's no stigma with any of it. We want to encourage people to, in fact, if I have a closing message for you, and that is, if you have something going on and you've got medical documentation to support it, don't wait. come and get yourselves set up early in O week, earlier, or in the first week. Don't wait till the stressful end of the term when you actually realise that you really need us, but just have us there as a buffer, and be prepared just in case. You don't have to use adjustments unless you need them. You're the boss of that. So that's pretty much it from me. I've got some pamphlets I'm going to hang around afterwards. I'll even stay around for the parents session and happy to answer questions and also give some more information out. So good luck, go well, and enjoy the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle, for that insightful information. I'd now like to please introduce Anna, who is an alumni student from the Connections program. Connections is an exciting program supporting students from diverse backgrounds to gain professional skills and practical experience in the workplace alongside their studies. You're eligible to join the program from your second year, and at your pace get involved in professional development workshops, an industry boot camp, and company site visits, a leadership camp, and for some participants, a paid internship. Participants gain a network of supportive peers, build confidence, and improve career pathways upon graduation. Please make it welcome, Anna.
All right, so hello everyone. It's really nice to meet everyone. So funnily enough, I was in your position just about 2 years ago. So I graduated in 2020, and like some of you guys, I was also a Gateway student. And the unfortunate component of like emerging from the COVID era is that there's not a lot of on-campus stuff that are being run. So I would hope that you guys take full advantage of like everything that comes your way this year. But I also just want to give a bit more insight about myself. I'm currently a third-year student. I'm studying law and arts, where I major in politics and philosophy. And I just want to take another big congratulations for you guys actually making it here, because I know you guys would have put in a lot of work like over the past year, over the past few years, just to be here. And so a bit more of an elaboration on the Connections program, which I encourage all of you guys to actually genuinely put yourself into, because it really does like give you a lot of insight into the industry, right? So for instance, Michelle had actually reached out to me about an internship at NDIA, which is the National Disability Insurance Agency, which is an intergovernmental agency. And basically other than the Connections program, you really enter into it like fresh-faced. I was like beginning of my second year, and I was still like unsure what to do work experience-wise. And they give you a lot of upskilling workshops throughout the year. They even give you opportunities to apply for internships. And I had applied for 2 previously, and I didn't really get them just because they weren't really in my field of expertise, so like fintech, or the other one was a legal one, but you have to be like in your final year. And so Connections really gives you the opportunity to like work on your interview experience, because I feel like at this point in time, you guys wouldn't have had the opportunity to do so. So that's really that. So in terms of like what my internship really entailed, I was working as a social policy and research intern, and so that meant that I got to do a lot of different things. I got to provide support to the executive office in terms of like, you know, reviewing materials, writing ministerial correspondences, and just some other stuff as well. My general experience working at NDA was actually very, very enjoyable, because other than the great people who worked there who helped me every step along the way, everyone at the Connections program was really, really supportive. I remember like every few weeks I get a call from like Michelle from the office or Josh, and they'd be checking in on how my experience was going. And that made me feel like really supportive throughout this whole thing, and made me really, really confident. Because, you know, when I move forward now in, you know, my university degree and my university life, I'm going to be able to do a bunch of different things. And so yeah, I also, in terms of just this experience, because they tell you to try out for experiences, and if it isn't really what you want to do, it helps you open up your mind in terms of other things that you would like to experience. And so in my last week, I was able to network with a bunch of different people. I reached out to the legal division at the same company, and I'm using that to spring forward myself, like forward into more opportunities. And so, yeah, I think like something you guys will realize, because you guys are coming fresh out of Year 12, is that networking is a very, very big component of your university life. Because other than just grinding hard at like university life, having fun at social events and all those things like that, networking is also really important. So I'd encourage you guys to like go to a bunch of different events, network. LinkedIn is really important. And so yeah, I think overall my internship experience was really, really great, and I would encourage all of you guys to, sign up to the Connections program, and that's really that. Hope you have a good rest of your day. I see you guys have a very packed day. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Anna, for sharing your experience with us. We can all see your questions coming through the Slido, so it's now time for me to call up the specialists and the panelists for the live Q&A panel. Feel free to keep submitting your questions via the QR code and upvoting the questions you want answered. On our panel today, we have Tom Pike from UNSW Employability, Tracy Ellis from Student Support, Dominic Fitzsimmons from Academic Skills, Mitch McBurney from ARC, and Tom Dallas from the Nucleus. Please make them feel welcome. All right, so now's just time for our panelists to introduce themselves, starting from Mitch.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Mitch, and I work for ARC at UNSW. ARC doesn't stand for anything. It just arcs over a whole bunch of different stuff that we do for students outside of the classroom. Our mission is to make you have the best possible student experience, which means that we do clubs and societies, parties and events, sport, volunteering. We help students, we run a food hub on campus, we do heaps of different really fun stuff, and it's really important that you know that your time at UNSW is as much about the education in the classroom as your experience outside of the classroom, and that's what we're here to do.
Hi everyone, my name's Dominic Fitzsimmons. I'm from the Academic Skills area of the university. I've been at the university for a long period of time, so welcome to everybody here, to parents and friends and carers, as well as the students too. I think it's really important to think about the nuts and bolts of what you do at university, the reading, the writing, the thinking, the researching, the presenting, etc. All of these things are not just for one assignment, not just for one course, but they're the things that you take with you, from, as what Anna was saying, into what happens outside of university. And this is what we do. We help in that way. We help you with, if, for example, individual consultations throughout your whole degree. You can come in and chat to us and say, look, I need a little bit of help with this assignment, etc. What can you advise? We work also with group workshops where anybody can come in and seek some advice. We also teach in faculty, teach some courses. We also run some of the peer mentoring and peer tutoring programs as well. So there's lots of different aspects to this way of, if you like, learning the nuts and bolts of the academic part of the process. So welcome to you all.
Hi everyone, I'm Tom from UNSW Employability. I realise that you're at the stage of your degree program where you're not thinking about your graduate roles. However, our services provide coaching and development throughout your time at UNSW to build your employability alongside what you're learning in the curriculum so that you can go on and secure the roles that you want to get. We have an amazing team of career coaches and other staff who run a lot of programs and give you the opportunity for individual appointments. And all I can say is get involved early. We have a coaching appointment called Design Your Experience, and that is for our new students to meet with a coach one-on-one and think about what opportunities they can get involved in alongside your curriculum to help build your employability while at UNSW. So all the amazing things that ARC and Mitch runs and all the other opportunities, how you can really plan that. We realize also that you're often, many students change their mind as they go through the degree, and our coaches are always here to help in discussing that with you and discussing the options for your careers. So all I can say for this cohort is I really hope that everyone who's here and listening to this doesn't come to our coaches in the final term of the degree saying, I don't know what I want to do, and when the coach asks them, they haven't actually engaged in any of the programs and support services. It's okay to come in your final term of your degree and say, I don't know what I want to do, but you've tried lots of different options and you've helped narrow it, because all the things that you're building throughout that are helping you prepare for your graduate future once you finish. So some of you in this room may have a very clear idea, but some of you may be very uncertain of what you want to do, and we've got a lot of opportunities to support you through that.
Hey guys, I am also Tom. We probably shouldn't have sat next to each other. I'm from the Nucleus. We are designed to be your one-stop shop for student services at UNSW. It would take me an hour to list everything that we do there, but basically any questions you have around your enrolment, around fees, ID cards, which are particularly timely at the moment, come and see us on the ground floor of the library or give us a call. We'll be able to help you out. The one thing I'll say as well on top of that is that we really do want to be that one-stop shop. So even if you're not sure where to go, it's a really big, complex university, it's a big, complex organisation. So if you don't know who you should be talking to about a particular issue, if you don't know what the right next move is, get in touch with us and we'll either be able to help you out or we'll be able to put you in touch with the person who can help you out. So yeah, we hope to see you all really soon. Come get your ID cards after.
Hi everyone, my name's Tracy. I'm one of the advisors with Student Support, and our team is here to make sure that you as a person do well throughout your degree. We focus on your welfare, and that might be a combination of your academic and your life welfare. We anticipate that overall you're going to have a wonderful journey here with us, but sometimes life happens and things change, and you may want to go and have a chat to someone in a confidential way about some things that might be happening for you, and Student Support would certainly be the team that can do that. So if you're ever unsure about things that might be happening for you, you're not sure where to go, or you've got some concerns that are disrupting your studies and you really need to have that talk with someone, come and have a chat to one of the advisors with Student Support, and wish you all the very best in your journey here with us.
Thank you to all of our speakers today who are here joining us on the panel. We'll now begin the Q&A session. So all of the questions that we will be answering will be via the Slido. So if you have any more questions, feel free to just pop them through. And let's start. Seems like the most upvoted one. I'll start from that one, which is, what are the best clubs to join for making friends? Mitch, this one's for you.
Excellent. What a great question, and what a great way to be thinking about your first days at UNSW is about the people you want to connect with. If anyone doesn't know what a club is, that's totally okay. They're very unique to the university space. They don't really happen outside of universities, but they are basically student-run mini organizations, and some of them aren't mini at all. They're absolutely enormous, but they are run by students for students with a particular area of interest. And at UNSW, we have more clubs and societies than any other university in Australia, and I've traveled overseas and asked universities overseas how many clubs they have, and we also have more clubs than them too. So, the problem is, when there's 300 clubs to join, which ones do you join? And at O Week, next week, you'll be able to wander up and down all of the stalls at UNSW and speak to all of the clubs and discover all of the different things that you might want to dip your toe into and try. There are so many things to think of. We have like a debating society, a Chinese student society, we have a Chinese students debating society, like literally everything you can think of. My favorite club that's like recently joined the fold is the Hot Girl Summer Society. And they are not just for girls. Anyone can join the Hot Girl Summer Society and just be their best self. But you can tell from that there are so many different clubs to get involved in. I always suggest to people that you should really give your time and energy to 3 clubs in a term. And those 3 clubs to me are, one, related to your studies. So that could be what we call a constituent society. For example, if you study commerce, you might join the business society, or you might want to go further down the chain. You might want to go to a school-based society like the accounting society, or something in that regard. I suggest people join a club related to a hobby or interest that they might have. So if you like robotics, join the Robotics Society. If you like debating, join the Debating Society. If you like Star Wars, join the Jedi Society. Whatever you want to do. And then the last society I suggest people join is one that is just totally outside your comfort zone. Try something new. This is your chance to do it. And this is your chance to flex the muscle of trying something new, to practice being in outside of your comfort zone. And I think in all three of those scenarios, you will meet amazing people at this university. Clubs are so excited to have anyone joining up to them. They're always excited to meet new people. When you join that constituent society, it's great to meet people just 1 or 2 years ahead of you in your degree, because they can tell you what classes are awesome. They can tell you what subjects are awesome. They can give you the hot tips for starting to prepare for what assessments early, whatever you need to do. So wander down all of those societies. You can join as many as you want online, but I reckon commit to 3 throughout term 1 and you'll be in really good stead for the rest of your degree.
Thanks so much, Mitch. That was so insightful. All right, we have a couple more questions up. I believe the next one here, ooh, that's a good one. Okay, any student discounts for food or only free food from clubs trying to recruit us?
Is that a bad thing, to take free food from clubs? You know, there are lots of food discounts on campus at various providers. There are some like coffee places where you can get a cheaper coffee if you join up to a certain club or society. You can get 10% off at the Roundhouse if you're an ARC member, on burgers and salads down there as well. But a really hot tip is to join clubs and grab their free food. There's always free food out on the quad. And the other thing I suggest is we have a program called Food Hub, which is a new program that was developed during COVID because we know that students really suffer from food security. And if you can't have a nutritious meal, that's going to affect your studies. So we want people to prioritize eating well. Food Hub is open 3 times a week on Lower Campus near Gate 2, and it is giving out free groceries. All you have to do is register. We're not putting your data anywhere. We just want to make sure that we have enough food for the people that are coming on the day. But you can get fresh food. You can get like longer term food. There's specials. Sometimes we do like recycling there, or we're handing out other freebies as well. And outside of the Food Hub, there's also a food cupboard. So that's open 24/7. That has like beans and like long-term goods that you can come and grab at any time, because eating well means that you can be studying well. That's really important to us.
Thanks again, Mitch. I personally have been to Food Hub myself, and I must say that have literally artisan sourdough bread there that you can pick up for free. So, next question I'll bring up as well would be, okay, that's an interesting one. The use of AI to complete assignments. Is it cheating or thinking outside the box and using all possible tools at your disposal?
Yes, the question of the time, isn't it? There are many ways to answer this question, I have to say, and there are many people at the university who are thinking through the ways for the university to think about this issue, to be quite honest. One, there's a couple different ways. There's also what students do. And I think that's also really important, that at one level, in terms of your academic work and your learning, you have to make lots of decisions. And I suppose this is when people talk about thinking critically. This is really what we're saying. There are lots of shortcuts, and sometimes they're legitimate shortcuts to use when you're studying and learning. And you would know this through doing the last few years of schooling. And then you also have to think about, okay, sometimes to learn something takes the hard yards. It takes a lot of blood, sweat and tears to actually do that. It takes going over the material, talking about it with somebody else, being confused, trying to find your way through confusion. And anybody who studied at university will know this. And I think that goes across the board, whether you're learning concepts in, say, a humanities-based course, or whether you're learning maths equations, etc., whether you're trying to apply equations to a given scenario. There's lots of choices you have to make about how am I going to do this. And obviously technology has been part of learning ever since. I mean, just what we're using here, this is technology. The way we're using pen and paper is technology. I think it was Socrates or Plato, I always get this wrong, who actually thought that writing things down was bad for you because it made your brain a bit spongy. You know, you didn't remember things if you had to write them down. So that's one, I suppose, attitude towards technology. But I think the thing is that obviously there is technology around. My advice is, well, think about what it is. Think about how it works for you. Think about how it works ethically for you and the other people you share the time and space with. And then you make the decision about it. I mean, there's an interesting discussion about what is cheating. When it's somebody who's made a decision, I'm going to cheat, and there's a number of reasons why they do that. Whether sometimes it's just a lack of time. Lots of pressures that you might have, social pressures, family pressures, community pressures that are on, and there's not much time to be really putting those hard yards in. Sometimes that becomes too much. If that's a situation, I always think, always come and ask somebody. Ask your tutor, your lecturer, one of the support staff about that, because there are many different ways to either reduce your load and so on at university, or even apply for extensions. I think that's the ethical thing to do. But yes, if you have money, there are certainly many ways to cheat. We know that. Do you want to do things in that way? Or do you want to think of yourself as, look, I'm doing this the most ethical way I can. I'm learning as best I can with other people, and by learning with other people, I'm helping them. I think that's one of the most important aspects. But I take the point that I think all research that you do at university, particularly in first year, is building on, as we say, the shoulders of others, on the shoulders of giants. So obviously we're always looking at what people have done before. But particularly in terms of what we've talked about in the last couple of weeks, there will be, as I said, there's an official discussion which is happening this week, I think, within the university itself about, okay, what's going to be the position in terms of lectures and tutorials in terms of this particular kind of aspect. But I think that's the best way, when it comes down to, I think it's you making decisions to be ethical, to be quite honest. And I think if you have questions about that, I think always come and ask somebody about what you're doing. I think that's the best way to do it. But I know, all students are under pressure. We were when we were students too. We get that. We get that sometimes you hand something in, you know it's only half as good as what it could be because that's where you're at that point. Well, hand it in anyway. It's always my advice, hand the thing in anyway. It's much better to do that and then move on to the next thing rather than to procrastinate, try and find some shortcut, hand something in. It's probably not going to work out too well for you. It's better to, as I said, better to hand something in and then you'll be in a better position at a bit further down the track. Well, that was a good politician's response, wasn't it?
I was going to say, that's such a nice response from Dom, but I'm making eyes with Jess, who deals with a lot of students that get in sticky situations because of plagiarism in various configurations, and you will absolutely get kicked out of university if you are caught with a serious plagiarism charge. So absolutely not worth the risk either.
Yeah, very scary, getting kicked out of uni. All right, so I'll move on to the next question. I believe there was a good one. All right, a question from Sebastian has 22 upvotes. How do the online classes work and how can you access it?
Sebastian, it's a good question, and obviously something we've gotten a lot better at over the last couple of years. I guess it depends if we're talking about how does it work in terms of getting into them in the first place, or how does it work in terms of actually studying. Getting into them, look, they're just like regular classes. If you go on through the handbook, if you work through your personalised offer page, it'll tell you what you can enrol into, and it'll tell you whether it's an in-person class or online. If you're struggling with your enrolment at all, come and see us in the nucleus and we'll be able to help you out. In terms of how the actual online classes themselves work, look, they're all different, right? We have some of our classes run hybrid, some run fully online. But I will say over the last couple of years, there's been a real concerted effort and a real pivot towards delivering that outstanding experience that we always had in the classroom online. And we've seen that with Quilt survey results coming out, with student experience and learning engagement rising over the last few years, even though we pivoted towards online. So it's a little bit of a tricky one to answer because it really does depend on the class itself. Most of it's run through Moodle. They'll have face-to-face virtual lectures and things like that happening. But your best bet, if you've got any concerns or questions about a class that you're looking at taking and it's an online class, and you're not sure how it's going to work, either reach out to staff at the nucleus and they can sort of clue you into it, or reach out directly to the lecturer and they can give you a bit of a snapshot of what the experience is. Or the third option, of course, if you've taken Mitch's advice and joined some clubs or societies, try and find another student who's studied it, because that's obviously, that lived experience is one of the best ways to figure out what it's going to be like for you.
Can I just add something into that? 'Cause I think an important question for the last couple of years, and this is, I suppose, from the lecturer tutor's perspective, is that in some ways it is the same as in the classroom. In other ways, it's very, very different trying to teach. And the most important thing, as with all the classes, is your participation. That's the key thing. The moment people raise a question or put something in the chat, etc., then it actually makes the class come alive. So much of university, ironically, depends on the students. You can make the class come alive, and you can help not just yourself but other people. Importantly, also think about this in terms of your own space, where that might be. You've got to have a good space, and this can be really difficult, I know, for some people in terms of being online. You've got to have that space, you've got to be able to listen, etc. And so try and work that out early if you do have those online classes. I think that's one of the most important points, is trying to work out the space where you're studying.
Yep, amazing answers from both Tom and Dom. I'll move on to the next one as well. Okay. This one's a bit of a... 21 upvotes. If I miss an in-person lecture, am I able to view it online? Does it impact anything?
Yeah, look, again, it does depend a little bit on the class. So most classes will have a minimum attendance requirement that'll be outlined in the course outline. Most classes these days do have recordings of lectures, but not all of them. So again, it's something that you'll need to understand based on that individual course. I feel like I'm going to be saying this a lot, but the best thing you can do is just talk to your course authority, talk to your lecturer about it. But that said, we totally understand that things happen, right? We do have a fairly flexible policy around things like attendance and special consideration, obviously within reason. So it's definitely not meant to be something that stresses you out. If you can't make it in, if you've got a legitimate reason for not getting in, it's not a problem.
Yep, all right, so next one. Okay.
The
Most
gym?
upvoted one, yeah, it's about the gym actually. So is the UNSW gym available to all students?
Firstly, a very important branding clarification. That is the UNSW Fitness and Aquatic Centre. So don't call it the gym, but absolutely it is a huge gym. It has a weights room, it has heaps of cardio machines, it has classes, there's a massive 50-metre pool in there, there is squash and badminton courts. I took my netball team in there and we did some weights training. I think I saw a gymnastics room in there. It's sort of like Harry Potter, Hogwarts, Room of Requirement, like something else opens up every single time you go in there. I am told that it is a very cost-effective gym for students, and so it's pretty cheap to join. You usually get like the first 2 weeks free, and you could do that as a trial. You kind of have to think about whether it's going to work for your timetable. Are you going to be on campus enough? Do you want to shower? Are you catching public transport? Are you driving? All of those other things that go around going to the gym and coming to class. But by all accounts, it's a great gym, and lots and lots and lots of students join up to it. I know there's another question about sport as well, so lots of different ways to have a healthy body to support a healthy mind at UNSW. You can also join a sports club, you could play social sport. The jewel in the crown of UNSW sport is the Village Green complex, which has got a bouldering wall now and an outdoor gym and heaps of other stuff as well. So try and find a way that you're going to get active while you're at uni, because it will support your studies as well.
Amazing, so it's pretty easy to exercise on campus if you're looking to do that. All right, moving on, we have a question with 16 upvotes. What do we bring to class? Tools. Interesting.
Tools, yeah, that's interesting. Well, it depends what you're studying, doesn't it, I suppose. And one thing, just to go on with the sport and being fit, you'll notice that there are lots of steps on this campus. So if you're going from one end of campus to the other, you will get fit anyway.
I've been told that UNSW stands for You Never Stop Walking.
And so if you are making your way to your first class, it can be 10 to 15 minutes, depending where you are on campus, so keep that in mind. It depends on what the course is, really. I think laptop is pretty much accepted nowadays to bring along to university classes. Some people still prefer pen and paper to bring along. They find that a much more effective way to actually take notes, etc. I would say before your first class, one thing is look on Moodle, which is the learning management system that we use at the university, and look at your course. As a few of us have been saying, the course outline is really important in terms of that kind of information. What is expected that you read before the first lecture or the first tutorial, the first lab, etc. And it will also say if you need to bring something. For some courses, you will need to buy a textbook. So the bookshop is a good place to go and do that. Other courses, it might be there is nothing you actually have to buy. It's all on Moodle. It's all electronic storage. So I think that's important as well. One thing is get to know the library as well. Some people avoid the library for many months. I remember when I was first at uni, I had a friend of mine who never went to the library. And I said, why don't you go in? You just kind of go in. Anyway, it was a long, extended story, which I don't need to go into. But it was interesting that I think that he said that in the end, that cost him kind of a lot of time because he was trying to find things out other ways. So get to know the library, get to know Moodle. That will let you know what you should bring along. But most people will be in the same situation as you. One thing I always notice too is in the first couple of weeks, everybody's trying to work out what should I wear to uni, you know? And you're kind of looking around, you can wear those shoes, right? Okay, I'll wear those shoes. It's really interesting. But one thing to keep in mind is that even though it's been very hot the last few days, when you go into a lot of the rooms, it might be quite cool. So I would say always take something which is warmer. Otherwise you could kind of freeze in some of the rooms around campus. So that might be one thing to think about in terms of being prepared for university.
It's good advice. The temperatures can vary pretty wildly room to room, so keep that in mind. Look, I think, like Dom said, pen, laptop are the big things. One note on laptops as well, if you're coming into campus and you've forgotten it or left it at home or something, you can hire them out from the library for free as well. So just head into the ground floor of the library, so it's not the end of the world. Course outline's your best friend, but for most of them, pen, laptop, and your brain should be a good start.
Perfect. All right. So I'll move on to the next one as well. So what are the main differences between studying at high school and university?
So it's a really big question. Probably the biggest one is, you know, everyone's going to have a different experience with this, but I think the biggest one is going to be the lack of structure, relatively. So you're not just going to be, you know, yeah, cool, I get there at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock every day, I'm there until 3:30, I've got all my classes laid out. There's a lot more accountability and a lot more responsibility on you to take control of your own learning, which is a really big step, and we recognise that, and that's why there are so many great support services on campus, particularly for first years. So make sure you're accessing those if you're not sure. But yeah, keeping yourself on track is going to be probably the biggest point. I would say just again, on ways to manage that, like Mitch said, you know, and we're probably going to be broken records with a lot of this stuff, but talking to other students and getting involved with the student community is going to be one of the best ways to be able to stay engaged and stay locked in. And obviously through the nucleus we see people who, you know, may be struggling later on in their degree, and one of the biggest common factors is people who tend to sort of draw back and isolate themselves from the university a bit more. It makes it a lot more challenging to stay engaged and a lot more challenging to re-engage if you kind of drop off. So I think the biggest piece of advice would be to throw yourselves into university life fully. You know, try and get to know people in your program, try and get to know people in your classes and around campus, and that's the best way to keep yourself accountable.
I might just chuck in something there as well. I would say this is also about we're interested in your voice, your argument. So if you do have, for those who are doing essays, for example, if it is actually arguing, what do you think? We actually do want to know, what do you think? Obviously, you go and do a bit of research and etc., have reasons why you think that way about it, but it's actually true. And I know that this is something that a lot of people say that from school, everything was set out. You knew what the answer was going to be in the HSC. There were two you know, answers you could give, etc. You just reminded yourself what they were and wrote them out. And I mean, it's a little bit more complex than that. But I think there's more space at university. We're expecting you to do a little bit more, I think, on that. And I think in terms of writing, there are different forms of writing. The essay you wrote at school won't cut it at university, to be quite honest. It's slightly different form. So I think about those things. Think about putting yourself a little bit more into it, making more of these decisions about what you do. Because I think it is important that relative lack of structure. We generally say that for every 1 hour that you spend in a class, it's probably 2 to 3 hours outside is what you need. So it's almost the reverse of what you did at school. So you do a lot more work outside than you do inside the classroom. And that will change and vary, because if you do engineering, you're in class a lot, but there's also lots of work to do outside. If you're doing, say, humanities course, you might do about half the hours in class of what someone in engineering does, for example. However, then there's a hell of a lot more reading that you would have to do, for example, outside of that. So I think that trying to work out that balance and organise yourselves, I think, is really important. I know that, Trace in staff support, student support, does lots of work in terms of helping people with managing their time and how you just set up that kind of timetable, etc.
Yep, perfect. So that's, I guess, one way that you can always try and balance it. There's a lot of support services here, obviously, as you guys already know. So feel free to just reach out if you need any support, but try your best to get a good start at uni. Cool. So next one I have would be, do UNSW provide online textbooks?
Well, it depends on the course. I think that's the best answer to that, really. Just have a look at the course outline, see what it says. Generally, the course outlines are available 1 to 2 weeks before term starts. So I think that's really important. And there are probably student lists as well, sort of email lists, whatever, where you can chat with other people who might give you advice. And I'm not sure, is it still that there are textbooks from previous years that people can buy, second-hand textbooks, I think?
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of it's also going to be readings, right? So while textbooks may not be available digitally, they will be for some courses, they may not be for others. But there's also going to be a lot of readings that you'll do depending on your degree, and those are usually all digital, so those will usually be available on Moodle each week, and you'll be able to go in and access them. So a ton of the content will be online. Your course outline will let you know if you need a hard copy of your textbook.
Yep, so short answer, depends, basically. All right, cool. So next question would be, what experiences, programs, or activities can help me develop job skills? How does the careers team help me?
So, as I mentioned, we've got a range of different programs and experiences, and it really depends on where you are in your own personal journey. So, we have career coaches who can provide individual appointments, and that's the best starting point, to have an appointment and a design your experience session where they can really unpack that. The other thing I'd really recommend for students in first year is our career discovery coaching program. And that is a chance for you to work over a number of sessions with our career coaches using an assessment tool called Motiva, which looks at your motivations, interests, and values, and how that might align with your future career path. And the coaches are trained in that, and they unpack that with you. You may already know exactly where you want to go, and for that we have a load of different opportunities, such as the leadership program. We have work integrated learning that might be within your degree program. We also have interdisciplinary work integrated learning opportunities, which are fantastic opportunities if you can fit them into your curriculum, where you work with students from different faculties on a real world problems and projects with our employers. We've got fantastic connections with employers in so many sectors, and we bring them onto campus to speak to students on a regular basis. So that's something that you can familiarize yourself with. You may not be at that point of writing your grad applications now, but we do have talks where employers come in and talk about what the culture of the industry, the sector, and other ways you can discover what it's actually like to be in those professions. And I think the most important thing is to trial things. So once you've got an idea of where you want to go, whether that's through clubs and societies, through opportunities in your curriculum or outside your curriculum, give it a go and try it, and you really will then be able to, I guess, understand if that's the direction you want to take, or come back to us and reflect with a career coach and other supports about making some changes in your path. So we have a website which has all the programs laid out, and we've got a roadmap, Discover, Launch, Grow, which categorizes the different programs. So the discovery phase is for students who are unsure of where they want to go, and we've got a lot of programs that help to understand your values, your interests, and what might be available in the different sectors. The launch phase is for programs which enable you to trial different opportunities, and also we provide support in writing your graduate applications, interview skills, resumes, LinkedIn profiles. And then the grow phase is designed to help students transition into their graduate roles. So if you've secured a graduate role, how can we help you transition into the workplace? But also, it may be a while off now, but we offer the support in the grow phase for students for up to 2 years post-graduation. So we don't just leave you with, let's call it a warranty period, where you can come back and meet with our coaches and chat, because we know that transition to the workplace can be a challenging time, and we can unpack different professional development opportunities you might want to engage in.
Yep, awesome. So personally, I have a lot of friends that have graduated already and are confused about where to go, what kind of job they want. So UNSW employability will definitely help you guys with that as well. Cool. So next one, 27 upvotes. Does it matter if classes on my timetable are directly one after another? Do classes start exactly on the hour?
It's a good question. Yes, generally they do start on the hour. Depending on your class or your lecturer, there's usually a bit of flexibility, particularly if you're backing up another course. As Dom mentioned, though, the campus is pretty big, so it is worth considering that when you're doing your timetables. I'd usually recommend, if you can, try and leave a little gap between classes. But if you don't have one, and if you're running from one class to another one, you'll find you're not the only person doing that. So it is a reality of uni life. Don't worry about it. Certainly not a reason to sort of drop a course or anything like that. And it may be something worth chatting with the tutors of both of those classes if it's starting to become a bit of an issue. Hey, can I leave a little bit early because I've got another class? Hey, I might be 5 minutes late because I've got another class. So communication's your best friend, but you're definitely not going to be the only one with that problem.
I'd just add into that too that unofficially the university hour is 5 past to 5:02. So it's to give you that time to get from one area to the other. And particularly if you've got, say, a 2-hour seminar, tutorial, lab, lecture, etc., then generally there's a break at some point. And that will vary according to the content, etc., and who's teaching as well. So just keep in mind that there is a little bit of flexibility, but I agree that you've got to, if there is going to be a time when you're not going to make it from one room to another, then it's always good to let the tutor or lecturer know about it. And I think just on that point, most tutors and lecturers are quite happy to hear from students about these issues if they become issues. I think it's really important to as we say, reach out. Most students never go and speak to a tutor or lecturer at all. So if somebody does, generally we think, oh wow, that's fantastic. Somebody's actually interested in what I'm interested in. This is really good. So I strongly encourage you to do that. Anyway, just if you have any questions, or even to say, that was a really good lecture. You don't know how much that means to us if somebody comes up at the end and says, oh, that was really interesting, thank you. It actually means something, when we've put the work and the time into it. Just to have somebody say that, which I actually did like about online stuff. So many people in online in the chat would say, oh, thank you, and all the little thank yous would go through. I thought, wow, that never happens in a regular classroom. So yeah, I think I suppose be reasonable in that situation with the timing.
Yep, cool. So if you have classes right next to each other, main answer is just to run, basically.
You may find you don't actually need the gym, whoever asked about that. Just put your classes either side of campus, you'll be fine.
Can I just add on that too? If people who are in wheelchairs or need other ways of accessing the campus, there are ways to get through and into buildings up all the way around campus. So also just check that out. There are some campus maps, but also just see if there are any updates on that. Because as you'll notice, this campus, and I've been here a long time, is always being built. It's constantly being built, so it's always good just to find out if there's a pathway that you go. It may not be as accessible if there's some building going on.
You could also get a ride in the security buggy if you ask them really nicely.
I didn't even know that.
You absolutely can't do that. Don't try.
Oh. All right, cool. Next question I've seen lingering around, so I'll get it addressed. Is there someone we can see to confirm we have selected the right classes for the direction we want to head in?
Yeah, absolutely. So come and see the nucleus. We can sort it out for you. Your best bet for something like that, And it depends a little bit on, I guess, how much detail you want to go into. You can just walk in any time. We can sit you down and be like, yep, cool, you're sorted for classes, that's great. You're not going to get kicked out of uni or anything, that's perfect. But if you want to have a really in-depth conversation about, look, I'm doing engineering, this is the kind of engineering I want to get into, I want to make sure I'm qualified, that sort of thing, then all you need to do is book an appointment online with one of your faculty advisors. You do that through the Nucleus website, and they'll be able to sit down with you for sort of half an hour, really drill into all of that with you. We can do follow-up appointments or whatever else you need. So either way, first step, get in touch with the Nucleus and we'll take it from there.
Amazing. Cool. So, next question we have, I'm struggling to balance work, study, and finances. What should I do? So what support services are there that will be able to help?
I think that might be a question for me. That's where you make a booking with one of the advisors in the student support team. Come and have a chat. We'll have a look at what your life looks like and all the things that you're juggling, and have some really good conversations around what changes you might be able to make, what resources you may be able to access, and other supports that might be available to you, and start feeling like you're back in control of your life again, because that question is a sense of, I'm losing control of what's going on here, I don't know where to go next and not sure what to do. So student support is definitely the place to go and have that kind of conversation, and we'd be really pleased to be able to sit down and chat with you about that.
Perfect. So go to student support if you feel like you're struggling with anything in that regard. Cool. So this one's a quick question. How do I get a student card? Can I get it today?
It's a great question. I'm glad you asked. So all you need to do is go over to the Nucleus if you're here on campus today. You can head straight over. All the yellow signs in the main library walkway are going to guide you into the door. Just make sure you've got photo ID with you. So if you're an Australian citizen, you need to have either your passport or your driver's license. If you're an international student, you'll need your passport. And you also need to have been enrolled in classes for more than 24 hours. So if you've just done your enrolment today, unfortunately you won't be able to get a student card today. It just takes a bit of time for it to tick over in the system. One other thing I will say is I really would strongly encourage everyone, if you haven't already, to either book in for an appointment or just head over after this, or when you have a break today in your busy schedule. Next week is O Week. Campus is going to be packed. We're expecting to print about 8,000 ID cards next week. We do our best to make sure that there's no lines or anything like that, but I would strongly advise skipping the queue and just ducking in there today. If you can't, for whatever reason, if you are going to be coming back at another time, again, make an appointment. We do work really hard to prioritise anyone who's got an appointment for an ID card to make sure you don't need to wait. If you just rock up next week just for a card, you may have to stand in line for a little bit.
Yep, perfect. And what time does the Nucleus close, Tom?
5 o'clock. So we're open 9 o'clock till 5 o'clock in person for the next 3 weeks.
There you go. So you can get your ID cards now if you like. Cool. So I'll address the next question. With 21 upvotes, what's a good napping spot on campus?
My passion, napping. I think maybe serious answer first, which is if you're napping on campus, you may want to think about the quality of your sleep at home, and if there's anything that you need to do to make sure you do get a good night's sleep, going to bed early, letting yourself have a sleep in every now and again, not using screens too late, all that kind of stuff. That aside, there are some awesome napping spots on campus. There is a sleeping pod in the library. It's absolutely amazing. It's like the best sleep you've ever had in your whole life. And also on alumni lawn, if you like an outdoor sunny nap, there are hammocks, which are really nice. But other than that, like, explore campus, sleep everywhere, try something new. You never know where your sleeping spot might be.
Except maybe in the classroom.
Although that did happen to me once, actually. A student did go to sleep. It was towards the very end of the term, and it was an 8 o'clock tutorial too, so fair play to them, you know. But they just put their head down, and the other students go, I said, oh, it's okay. Let them sleep anyway. At the end, they woke up and they said, oh, I'm refreshed now. That was very good. So I thought, well, that's another way of learning. But there was actually in the library, when I was first a student, there was lots of bean bags I discovered. And this was fantastic, you know, and they had little paperbacks there. I had to look at the paperback, and I had a few little kips in the library at the beanbags, and there are beanbags back in the library again now. So I actually think that having a bit of a siesta is not such a bad thing, particularly when it's hot. And particularly, you know, quite a few of them might be working as well, and you've got, you know, odd hours. So I think it is nice when you can have that bit of downtime. So yeah, I agree. The sleep pod in the library is really good.
Yes, in conclusion, a lot of spots to sleep or nap. Yeah, explore the campus, as Mitch said. Okay, so, that's a good one. The top question, who would we go to for study techniques, etc., coaching to cope with workload?
Everyone's looking at me. Okay, that's, I think, my question. This is an interesting question. I think at one level, the people who you rely on the most are the people who surround you in your class, in your lecture. They're the ones you're going to see the most and rely on the most. I think also in terms of the tutorial situation, I think your tutor or lab demonstrator or lecturer, there's lots of different names depending on what you do, is also really important. There's also lots of online resources you can look at. So if you're just looking for those kind of static resources, you can download them, have a look at them, etc. That's also useful. If you're thinking about tutoring in the way that perhaps some of you did high school tutoring, I think again, because that again is for a different style of learning. There are many peer mentoring and peer tutoring programs on the campus. So have a look in your school or faculty for those, but also just generally. I think they're very useful because often you're listening to someone who's a couple of years older than you and has probably sat in the same seats literally as what you've sat in as well. And they can offer some particular advice about studying law, for example, which is different from engineering and so on. So I think that's actually really important as well. Or, as Tracy was saying, we also have one-to-one consultations. You can come in and talk about your work, and they can be, over a term as well if there is, there's significant questions that you want to talk about. So I think all these things are really important, but also I think, as I say, just getting used to how the lectures and the tutorials run is really important. Getting used to the preparation, I think that's one of the most important things. Any preparation before class is really useful. It'll just put you in a good space for actually listening to what is being talked about. But as I said, keep a lookout for the various peer tutoring, peer mentoring programs that are on campus.
Yeah, so peer mentoring will be happening in the study lounge of the library from week 2 as well. So that's where you'll go to get your ID card, hopefully today. If not, then in the next couple of weeks. From week 2, there'll be peer mentoring running in that space. So you can use that. The other thing I'd say is if you're struggling, if you're feeling overwhelmed with your workload, with your course load, anything like that, please do book in an appointment at the Nucleus first and foremost, because we can go through a progression check with you. We can have a look at, are you enrolled in the right courses? Is this too many? What are your options in terms of dropping a course or deferring a course or anything like that? So you've always got a ton of different options. If you're feeling overwhelmed, please do come and talk to us, and either we'll be able to help you out or we'll be able to link you in with an academic advisor.
Perfect. So a lot of support services again. Feel free to just reach out at any time. Okay. Perfect. So next question here should be a quick one as well. How do we get a concession card for public transport?
So you don't need a concession card anymore for public transport, which is great, at least not from us. So there's a concession Opal card, which you can request through the Opal website. You just need to make sure that you've given consent to share your information with Transport for New South Wales, and that option is on your My UNSW. And there's some requirements around that in terms of study load. I think you need to be enrolled in 2 or 3 courses. It'll say it on that section. If you do have any issues with the process, or if you're struggling to be able to do that, again, just reach out to the Nucleus and we'll be able to guide you through it step by step.
Yeah, should be pretty easy to apply for that one. Cool. So next up we have, okay. Tips for things to do in between big time gaps of classes.
People have already asked about napping and food. What else can I tell you? Okay, there's heaps of great things on every day at UNSW. There will be clubs meeting up at lunchtime, in the afternoon, after uni, before uni. There is a running society that leaves from campus and runs around Coogee and Maroubra and runs back to campus. You can find a empty classroom and put a movie on. Like, there's heaps of things that you can do. There'll be plenty of ways to fill your time. You'll also have plenty of study that you want to do as well. So do that like timetabling work, look at your week, look at when you want to prep for classes, do your assessments, hang out with your friends, eat your lunch, have your naps, and then I'm sure your time will fill up very, very quickly.
And get a laksa from the Matthews food court just over there. It's going to change your life.
I agree.
Yeah, a lot of things to do. All right, Perfect. So, next question here. I'll get the last one, which is, are exams mostly online or paper and pen?
Yeah, good question. So obviously they were primarily online for the last few years, and now there's a bit of a shift back towards it. It does, again, really depend on what you're studying. A lot of exams are going to be paper and pen now. A lot are still going to be online. It's all fully invigilated, meaning that, we'll make sure that everyone's sort of doing the right thing regardless. But you'll get really clear instructions on that throughout your course and throughout your term from your tutor. The exam team works super hard to make sure that the schedules work, that the facilities are all there, and that you've got enough time beforehand to know exactly where you need to be, what you need to be doing. So even if it's in person, don't stress out. It's a really well-oiled machine now, and they'll take you through it.
Yep, there you go. So, next question I'll pull up would be, are there lockers, and what is the process for getting one? Lockers.
There are some lockers on campus. I know that, for example, in the postgraduate lounge, if anyone here is studying postgrad, maybe, you can use those lockers. I believe there are also lockers in the library.
There are some in the library. I'm not too sure on the requirements, but if you just walk through past all the ID card and nucleus paraphernalia, just through there's a library desk, and they'll be able to help you out with any questions.
Yeah, so if you bring a heavy bag to uni, it is what it is. You just have to carry it around.
Cool. So, next question up here. When/how are you able to complete an exchange?
Great question. Now, I should know the requirement off the top of my head, but I'm completely blanking. I feel like it needs to be at least after your first year, but I could be wrong on that. The best thing you can do, we've got a whole team who deals with student exchange, and they've got a ton of information about it. If you just have a look on their website, it'll have all of the key dates and the requirements. Again, I believe there are a couple of requirements in terms of the amount of units of credit you've completed, and potentially something around your academic performance, sort of a minimum level. But outside of that, should be really clear information on there. It's just a simple application process. You go through that. And if you're lucky enough to go through it, you can study anywhere, heaps of places.
I'll just add to that we offer some shorter opportunities to go abroad with work integrated learning opportunities. So we've now started running programs in Singapore, London, Israel, where students can work interdisciplinary teams on projects overseas, and we'll be expanding that over the coming years. So we'll be getting that information out to students via the exchange team as well. But that's the opportunity to go for a term rather than going for the whole year.
Yep. Cool. So we just have time for one last question. So final one. Oh, this one's a tricky one. I think I've selected the one for our final one. So it's going to be the middle question. Will you only be able to join the clubs/societies during O week or just Monday?
Great question. Before I answer that, I might just reference the top question there, which is about prayer spaces, because I think that's probably a pretty important question to some people. There are prayer spaces dedicated prayer spaces on both upper and lower campuses, and also encourage you to join other faith groups that are part of UNSW, whether they're Christian faith, Islamic, Hindu, they might be related back to your ethno-cultural identity. There are lots of different ways to celebrate your religion on campus, and actually, funnily enough, there are lots of clubs related to that, which is the middle question, which is, can you join clubs on days other than Monday? Yes. You can start joining clubs today. You could have started joining clubs yesterday. You can join clubs in week 1, week 2, whenever. The benefit of joining in O week is that, they're all welcoming you to campus, and they're all doing their stuff for people starting out. So it's just the best time to join, but you can join some clubs this term. Maybe next term you want to try a few different clubs. The next term you want to try a few different clubs. You get kind of this really good reset button at the start of every term. You can come to O week, and also in week 1 we have a thing called Welcome Week, which is where we welcome back 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, etc. years back to campus as well. So lots of opportunities to join up to clubs. It can be a little bit technical. Different clubs will have different joining techniques. So some might get you to write down on a piece of paper that you're joining up to them. Some might have a Google form. Some might have a Facebook group that you join up to. So just be ready for those various exigencies, because they will, you don't want that ever to be a barrier to you participating. You don't ever want to be like, oh, it was difficult, I couldn't find it, so I didn't do it. Like, do the work, get involved, rock up, put a smile on your face, ask someone how their day's going, and I promise you'll have an amazing time. Done.
Yep. Perfect. So OEEC is a really good opportunity, guys. Really get ready for it. And starting next week, so be prepared. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for the Q&A today. Thanks for all those questions, and a massive thank you for the UNSW services for their time. If you are a student joining us online, please head over to Zoom for your virtual Community Connect session at 11:30 a.m. You will have received the link via your reminder emails, or you can scan the QR code on the screen. If you're a parent or caregiver, please stay with us in the auditorium or continue live streaming. We will commence the Parents and Caregivers session shortly at 11:30. If you're a student with us on campus, please head outside to meet our peer mentors for campus walks. When you exit the auditorium, you'll see your peer mentors holding faculty signs in different colors, as you can see from above. Thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Can we just make sure the mic's on? Perfect. All right. Okay, thank you very much, parents and caregivers, whether you're joining us in person here today or online, as your students take that next exciting step on their educational journey. So it's really wonderful to see you here. I'm Michelle Morris, and I have the absolute pleasure of leading the student engagement team here at UNSW, and it's wonderful to see you all today. So today I'm joined by Tracy, who is a student support advisor that you may have met in the previous session, and the student support team help UNSW students with personalised advice and information about university life, about well-being, about academic performance, and development of skills like time management to navigate and succeed here at university, and genuinely just in life. So as parents and caregivers, we know that you play a critical role in ensuring the success of your student at university. And during this session, we'll guide you through some support tips, some understanding to help you understand expectations and requirements at UNSW, and to answer any questions that you guys have. So the student support advisors are in fact our university experts. If you've got questions for our advisor today, please scan the QR code, and hopefully my clicker's not working, but there will be a QR code. Yes, please scan that QR code to start asking questions, and you can submit them anonymously, and you can also upvote questions, as you may have seen in the previous session, to ensure that they are answered. As they move to the top, they become the priority in the asking. And it's now my very great pleasure to hand over to Tracy for today's session. Thanks, Tracy.
Thank you, everyone. I'm just going to grab one of the handheld mics so that I can move around, and also acknowledging we've got some people online tuning in as well. Okay, so take a second. Beautiful. Lovely. Let's have a look. What university students' new life is going to look like. Well, I probably should start this session by saying that I'm also a parent of a child that's just finished high school. He's decided not to go to university this year, and he may try to decide never to go to university. I haven't worked that one out yet. But I feel like I can relate to some of the feelings you might be having and some of the questions you might have around, you know, what's this all going to look like for my child, and what's it going to look like for me as a parent. So hopefully I can answer some of those questions and give you a sense of what they will be experiencing as a new university student. Can we have the next slide, please? Can I do it? Oh, do we have someone working the slides? Ah, beautiful. Okay, I'll just pop this down here. Oh, okay. All right. Just to give you a sense of what it looks like during a regular university year here at UNSW, we have 3 terms in an academic year. The general kind of enrolment would be 48 units of credit. Each course is worth 6 units of credit, so 8 courses a year. So a lot of students enrol in 3 courses for 2 of the terms and just 2 courses for 1 of the terms. If you're a domestic student, you've got a lot of flexibility around that. You might do that a little bit differently. You might take an extra course in the summer. You might decide to do 3 courses in every term and accelerate the degree a little bit. We've got generally 10 weeks in each term. And during that 10 weeks, students will have what we call a flexible or flexibility week. And there might be some minimal classes run during that time to make up for any public holidays, but generally speaking, it's a bit of a study break for the students, so it's a little bit of a break for them. And it's a timely one too. Once they go into the second half of the term, the workload tends to increase a little bit, and that's where you might start noticing a little bit of stress in them as well. And then there is a study break after week 10, and then they'll have exams for 2 weeks. And in between each term, there is a 2-week break as well. So once exams are finished, they generally have 2 weeks off and then they're ready to go again for the next term. The longer break, obviously, is over Christmas and the New Year. There's about 6 weeks all up over. It might be a little bit longer, actually. Yep. Okay. So, a real full load is 3 courses per term. I think different universities do it a little bit differently. Some universities are still working on semesters, so they'd be doing 2 semesters a year and it's 4 courses per semester. And here it's 3 courses per term. Oh, already, look at that. Yeah. And they can expect to do a really diverse range of assessments depending on what degree that they're in. Some of the degrees, especially in the social sciences, would be heavily essay-based. If they're doing sort of the science kind of courses, engineering, there might be lots of weekly quizzes. Any students in medicine would be doing a lot of labs. So it really depends on the degree that they're doing as to the type of assessments that they might be doing. And there's a lot of class participation if they're doing law as well. So, and that's counted towards their grades. So it's worth having a chat to them about the type of assessments that they're being asked to do and how often that's happening for them, and just getting a sense of their general workload. Okay. Could we have the next slide, please? Thank you. All right, so this is just an example of what an assessment schedule might look like for a student. And if I do have a chat with a student about organising their time, I'll often get them to do one of these. It's a really handy type of one-page reference to what's happening for the term and when their assignments are due. If they've got it all laid out like this, I say to them, have a copy on your laptop and print a copy out, put it on the wall at which you're most likely to be sitting in front of and doing your work. It's a really good way to stay on top of what's coming up in each week of the term, because it's really easy for it to start moving forward very fast and losing track of when things are due. And it's also good for if there are more than one type of assessment due in the same week, looking at whether something can be started a little bit earlier and sort of staggering that a little bit just to manage the time. But I often encourage students to do this for themselves. Some of the things I'm talking about today, a lot of the students are already doing it from high school. It's transferable skills that they're going to bring with them. It's nothing new, but there might be some new information or new ways of doing things too that are going to be helpful for them at uni. Okay. Yeah, we can have the next slide. Thank you. Oh, that's interesting. That's what I was waiting for. Thank you. So we might also have a chat to students about... Oh, you need me to hold this down. Is that better? Was it too boomy? Thank you. Thank you. We might have a student that has a lot going on in their lives, not just uni, but that they're working, and some students work a lot of hours and they some need to. They might be moving out of home, so they might be paying rent and other expenses, or they might have bought themselves a brand new car and have to pay it off, I don't know. And they might have a lot of other responsibilities with family, socially, those kinds of things. So all of a sudden life can get really busy. And so we'll sit down and we'll help them work out a schedule for themselves. And the best way to start is to look at what's not negotiable, the things that they have to do. And of course, when they're at uni, the thing they have to do is attend class, whether that's in person or online. So we start looking at a schedule, something like this, and that all looks very doable. And then we move to the next slide, and that might look a little less doable for a student initially. So let's have a look at that. Okay. Yeah, so then we start adding in work. And if you can click again forward for me. and then we start putting in some study sessions here. Okay? Yep, and then they might go to the gym or play sport. If you can click forward again. Yeah, there might be some routine tasks that have to be done at home, laundry, helping out mowing the lawns, there might be those kinds of things. And then, if you can click forward again. Yep, they've got to eat. I think that's really important. Yep. And then, if you can click forward again. Yeah. Commuting time. Yep. Okay. And if you can click forward one more time. Okay, there's not a lot of space left. But we hope in those grey areas they are sleeping. That'd be great. Now, so when you start looking at it like this, all of a sudden life looks really full and there isn't a lot of spare time, downtime. This is actually really well done, except the only other thing, change that I would make to this if I was talking to a student is I'd say, if at all possible, to have one free day in the week, one free day, and if it can't be a full day, make it a half day. I've spoken to so many students that have such a packed life that it's all doable for a little while, but it's not sustainable long term, and then something starts to tip over, things start to slide, they're suddenly not keeping on top of what they need to. And a half to a whole full day off in your life is really good for just doing nothing, or it might be to catch up. I find I ask them to put in some regular study times in their schedule, and the other thing I'll say to them too is to put a plan B study time slot in their schedule. So if they haven't managed to get all their work done throughout the week that they really needed to, they've got a backup plan. They've got some time in their week that's not for any type of specific study, it's just there in case they needed that extra time because it didn't get done. Chances are they're going to use that. And if they've got all their work done, then that study time becomes free time, which is a bonus. So we try to look at it that way. I think it's really easy. Students want to do well, and they can actually become inflexible about how things go. I talk to them a lot about flexibility. Absolutely plan well, but learn to roll with the punches when things don't go the way you have planned. I think that's really important. And if you've got some backup time and some downtime, it starts to feel more doable for them. If we can have the next slide, that'd be great. Okay. So it was alluded to in the Q&A earlier, independent learning. I think that's probably the biggest change for students going from high school to uni, is so much more is assumed of them rather than it all being organised for them. And they do have to really think for themselves and organise for themselves. It's assumed that they're going to turn up to their lectures and their tutorials prepared. It's assumed they're going to check online what they need, or that they're going to ask in class for what they need. It's not going to be as fed to them as it possibly was at high school. So there's a lot of independent thinking and learning and organising themselves. They are expected to review their notes and get the readings done, map out when they're going to start and progress on their assignments, and how they're going to review their exams. Again, some of this they do well. And I think that's probably, as a parent, really important to tap into what they do well and how they can transfer that into what they're going to be doing at uni. Yeah. Do a lot of the parents here have their children working as well, working part-time at least? Yeah. Yeah. So we do have to be aware that if they're studying full-time and working part-time, the full-time study really is like a full-time job. That was mentioned earlier before. So any part-time work on top of that starts to become more than full-time in terms of working hours, even if it's study. because especially as they're new students, they're learning a lot of new information, so mentally they're getting tired very quickly. And it's a lot of new information they're taking on board. Yeah. Okay. And this has been alluded to earlier as well. I've spoken to a lot of students that when they start university, other things that they used to do for fun or for fitness, they stop doing because they're trying to manage their time, and so the quickest way to do that is to cull. They cull things. And one of the first things to go is sport or physical activity. And if they come made an appointment with me or one of my colleagues and they're feeling really stressed, one of the questions I'll ask is, you know, do you do any physical activity? And very often they'll say, I used to. And we'll talk about what that was, and I'll say, do you miss it? And nearly always they say, yeah, I really enjoyed it. So I say to them, let's look at how you can incorporate that back into your life. It seems really simple, but it makes a huge impact. Physical activity is really good for them mentally as well as physically. And so if that's one of the first things to go, and then their stresses are increasing, they suddenly don't have that buffer. And they can get stressed very quickly, and that's a great release. So if you notice that your child is culling those things and say, I don't have time, I can't do that anymore, maybe talk to them about how they don't have to give that up, and let's look at other ways that you can manage what's going on. You know, it's not always possible, but if it is, that's ideal. Okay. Yeah, let's have a look at this. Oh, what's that? That looks like one of the earlier slides. Okay. Anyway, I'll go with this. What have we got happening here? I wouldn't mind. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about navigating at university, although I do feel like the earlier Q&A did address this. They'll probably find that when they come on campus, it's good that they're here today, just like when they first started high school, it feels like they've got no idea where they need to go. The nucleus is probably, at the library, the core place to be and to ask where they might need to be next. And you'll find that there's a lot of staff around on campus as well, so let them know that there's almost always someone that works on campus that can guide them and where they may need to go next, because that can create stress for them as well. If they're running between classes, it's their first or second week, they're still trying to find places. Some students get so stressed about it they just don't go. Okay, so just encourage them to keep asking questions and find people on campus that can help them. They are everywhere, and we do expect that students do worry about these things, and we have a lot of people around ready to answer their questions. Okay. So the personal and family issues, I'm going to come to a little bit later. If we can have the next slide. Yeah. How to be a great support person. Well, that's a tricky one, isn't it? Because probably one of the biggest adjustments for parents of students going into university is to step back and let them be an independent adult. On the one hand, that's exactly what we want for them, and on the other hand, we want to help them do that. And probably one of the most difficult situations for me as an advisor in student support is having to say to a parent, I'd love to be able to talk to you about your child at university and what's happening, but legally I'm not allowed to. If they're over 18 and they're here as a university student, without their consent, written consent, we can't talk to a third party about them. And so sometimes that can be anxiety provoking for a parent because they see that there might be some issues going on. They contact the university and really want some help and guidance on this. So I'll often have a conversation with a parent in general terms. I won't directly identify a student that they might be talking about, but I can talk in general terms about what a student might be able to do and what a parent might be able to do to assist their students. So I just wanted to let you know that that's how it works, and that's legally that's what we need to do. It doesn't mean you shouldn't contact the university if you've got some concerns or questions, but just understanding the kind of conversation that we would be able to have without the student's permission. And that's probably the biggest difference between school and university for a parent. But we do believe and we do encourage students to talk to their parents where they can, and vice versa. We feel like the more nurturing you can make it at home for them and assisting them, the easier it's going to be for them. And it starts with having a good space for them to study at home. So let's go to the next slide. Yes. Bit fuzzy, that one. And it doesn't have to be expensive, or you don't have to go and renovate a space somewhere. Just making sure that they've got somewhere where they've got everything they need, that there's good natural light, that actually makes a difference, and that it's somewhere where they're least likely to be disrupted when they need that quiet time to do the work that they need to do. Of course, there might be situations where you're working really hard to get them to use that space, and encouraging them, bribing them, I don't know. But it does help enormously if they've just got that space, they know they can go, it's got everything they need. And once they go into that space, understanding that they need minimal disruptions around that. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. Now, I'm going to talk about signs that they might be struggling, but some of these things don't necessarily indicate that, as you would already know. It's just something to have a discussion around. And it's really about noticing changes in your child compared to perhaps how they were at high school. I think it's inevitable that they're going to change the way they do things once they go to university, so some changes can be expected. It's not all a bad sign. They might increase their social activity, and there might be good reason for that. They've joined a club and there's all these things going on, and that's a good thing. But if you feel like they're constantly going out and they're never studying, and it might be an avoidance behaviour around what they need to get done for university, then that's the things you need to be mindful of. So if you feel like they're never at home, but they're also not studying, then that's a sign. In reverse of that, if they used to be very sociable, and now they're at uni and they've stopped meeting up with their friends, they've never got time to socialise, they're far more isolated in general, and it doesn't seem like that's working for them, then that's also potentially a sign. And I think any of these things, it's about asking, is what they're doing, are the changes that I'm noticing, is it working for them? Does it seem to be okay? Is it in support of what they're trying to do? And if the answer is yes, then there's probably nothing to worry about. But if you see that it's having a negative impact in some way, then it's worth having a conversation and letting them know that you're noticing what's happening for them. Okay. I think they're at a crucial time in life where overeating or undereating can happen very easily. It's a way of managing stress. So just keeping an eye on that. You've probably already dealt with this at this point in time at some point. Okay. Not communicating. Well, maybe that's a problem, maybe it's not. We know that they don't tell us everything. But if you feel like that's changed in some way, obviously, again, is that workable? Do you still see that they're functioning okay? They're just not communicating very well because they feel like they've got a lot more going on now. May not be a problem. It's about using your intuition as a parent. Always being tired. I think that's probably a really important one. You would understand that that's a sign that at some point they're going to burn out and something's going to tip over, and just keeping an eye on it. all of these things are just being a watchful parent and sort of stepping back, observing quietly and taking notice of what's going on. But if they're always tired because they're going to bed at 2 a.m. and getting up at 6 a.m. and then heading to uni, then it's worth a decent conversation around, because it might be because they're staying up late playing video games, and those things are fixable. And good luck. The other thing, now you may or may not know about this, but their grades may deteriorate. They may or may not tell you what's happening. And that's where, as a parent of a new university student, can feel stressful because they may not tell you everything that's going on. But hopefully you do have a way of knowing, and they may give you some little hints. They may start talking about how it's a bit boring, you know, I'm not really interested, I wish I hadn't taken this course, blah, blah, blah. Take notice of any comments that they may be making about the courses that they're taking. If you start hearing some negative talk around it, that's a good thing to be chatting to them about. Okay. Yeah, as I said before, pay attention to your parental intuition. Above all else, you know your child best. Okay. They're not children anymore, are they? Okay. Yeah. So creating a supportive environment. Keeping in touch, regular texts, because if you're not seeing them, you may not be seeing them as much as you used to. And you're probably doing it already, just the regular texts, quick chats as you're passing ships during the day or night, keeping the lines of communication open. I think probably, I'm speaking for myself here, probably one of the hardest things is to keep it informal, not to make it an interrogation, but still letting them know you care about what they're doing. I guess it's that fine balance. Yep. Yeah, just constantly reminding them that they can contact you, that they can speak to you about what might be going on. So I've also added into here active listening versus advice. I think this is, again, can be tricky as a parent because we can sometimes see where they're heading, and it's really hard to just let go and see what happens. And sometimes they need advice. Sometimes they need some really clear guidance on some things. I think probably what's really helpful in getting there is the active listening before that. You know, letting them know you've noticed some things, and then just say, tell me more about that. Tell me what's going on there, or you know, what's happening for you. What do you think that means? Keeping those questions so that it feels non-threatening, but opening up that communication. And then if you feel like advice is really needed, they're more likely to be taking that on board rather than if the advice comes first. Because as we know, at this stage in life, it's really important they feel like they're driving their own ship. And following their lead, what works for them. And they may still be figuring that out. So what worked for them in high school may change now. They may need something different. And just noticing a lot of things about them as a parent, just keeping an eye on them. And, you know, in the first instance, trusting what they're saying until you feel like there's a reason why maybe you shouldn't, and then just checking in on that, but taking their lead on things and finding out what works for them. As we've already mentioned, encouraging them to reach out to the support services at UNSW. And very often that's because there's a lot of expectation about them doing well as a university student. So as a parent, that might be the last person that they want to go to if there's a problem. And that can be difficult to accept as a parent. But if that is the case, it's really important that they understand there's someone else they could go and speak to. Very often when I'm talking to students, I do encourage them to go and have a conversation at home and how they might do that. But very often I'll say, I feel like I'll be disappointing them, I've failed them, they're spending a lot of money on me, and I'm not doing well, they can't know, this is really bad. So they might say those kinds of things. And so if you're worried about why aren't they talking to me, that could be some of the things that are going on for them. And the other thing, need to go to the next slide, is so what are those support services? Okay. So we do have a psychology and wellness clinic on campus. Students can go and talk to a psychologist, and as student support we'll often refer students to that service if we feel like there's a mental health issue going on there. It might be something they come to university with, it might be something they've been dealing with for a while as a teenager through high school, or it might be something that's developed new and so they're not sure how to manage that. And just important for you as parents to know that these kinds of services are available on campus. So the difference between psychology and wellness is their focus is on mental health, and for us as student support, we're more holistic support, more overall well-being for a student. And yes, we might deal with some mental health issues or behaviours around that, but if it's specifically therapeutic that they need, then we'd refer them to psychology and wellness. You've also got equity, diversity and inclusion. That's really important service to be aware of. If there is a situation, and I honestly pray that this never happens to your child, and it's unlikely to, but using this as an example, if a student on campus has been sexually assaulted or any other type of violence, equity, diversity, inclusion would be a really good place to go and report the incident and get the support they need and take it from there. Okay. Lovely Michelle Sanders introduced Equitable Learning Services, and I was lucky enough to work with Michelle and the team for a couple of years. So if you have a child that potentially might need that service, or again, if there is a new development, a new diagnosis in any way, and they may need some different supports to what they had in high school, that's a service that I strongly recommend. Okay, and then academic skills, where it's really an academic focus. There may be a whole lot of other things going on, but it's a really good place to start. Very often, students have multiple things going on, and if they can start feeling in control of one area of their life, other things start to feel a bit better for them. So very often, it doesn't really matter where they start in this scenario. Starting somewhere is good. That initial conversation with someone, and a student may go to academic skills and get some assistance on how to understand an essay question, how to prepare for exams, and they might start feeling better about how they do that in their term and start feeling a bit more confident. Very often what we're doing is building students' confidence in their ability to cope with these things on their own, and that's the thing that's really lacking. So where they start doesn't really matter as long as they're aware. And very often too, when they start university, they don't know that at some point they may need these services. So they're not paying attention. That's not me, I'm good, I'm really happy to be here. And we want to encourage that. We want them to be feeling positive and confident about moving forward and being here. But very often they don't pay attention to the support services that they may need at some point along the way. So if you as a parent can take note of this, and then your child comes to you and said, I'm struggling with this, and I don't know where to start, then you've got the information in front of you, or you know where to find it. And as always, if you needed to, you could contact the university and say, I feel like my child needs some support, where do I go to find that for them? And give them the information. because they may not pay attention right now around this stuff. Yeah. Okay. Next slide. Questions. Fabulous. So, in terms of bringing up the questions, we bring it up on the screen here. I love this one. What is the number one support tip for parents and supporters in how we can help our students? I would say be approachable. Make it so that they would like to come to you for help and ask a question. Make it a welcoming space. And that means sometimes suspending your judgment about what might be happening for them, suspending the need to step in and fix a problem for them, and just create a space where they can talk about what's going on for themselves. That's probably the number one thing that you can do for them. Is there a dedicated contact point for parents? Well, there's not one dedicated point. The nucleus would be a good central point to start, I think, and then they can refer you to a particular faculty or service. I think I've addressed that well earlier though, in terms of we may be limited in the information that we can provide, but always very happy to provide general information to you if we don't have permission to speak to you specifically about your child. Okay. My student only has to go on campus 2 days a week. Why are they so busy with uni on other days too? Yeah. Yeah, so it can seem like, oh, they've only got to go to uni 2 days a week, but it's the work that happens outside of the classes that's really, really important. And this is often an issue for students that unless you're on campus yourself and you're walking through their days with them and seeing the volume of work that they have to get done, it can feel like surely it's just not taking that much time. Surely you can come to the family barbecue on Sunday. You don't have to get that assignment done today. Is there another day you can do that? But truth is that might be what they need to do. It's an enormous volume of work, and if a student's willing to dedicate that much time to it, wonderful. It's more the reverse, making sure they are getting some downtime. But if they say they've got a lot of uni work to do, they probably do. They probably do. Yeah. And my daughter will be living on campus at Colombo College. What security issues are there at the university, and measures are in place to mitigate these? So I am really happy to say we've got great security on campus. We can't mitigate everything, but I think we do a mighty job in mostly having good security for students that are staying on campus. There are in-house advisors for students that are living on campus as well. We've got I can't think of the correct term, but we've got the house, what would we call them? I'm going to say advisors for want of a better word, but they do have staff that they can go to and have a chat to if they've got any concerns about their well-being or their safety. There are people around 24/7, and there are staff that live in as well. So we certainly do make sure that that's something that is supported with the students living here. Okay. Did I miss some questions? Is it normal for my student to be very stressed during term? I'm going to say yes. I'm just going to say yes. And that will look different from student to student. Again, coming back to you know your child best and just observing any changes in behaviour that aren't working for them. And especially around exam time, it's the second half of term that gets really stressful. The first term, they're still taking on board what they need to do. They're getting themselves organised. Yes, there'll be some assessments due, maybe some weekly quizzes, but it all feels really doable because it's a 10-week term and it's only week 4. Where they get stressed is when it's now week 6, but they've still not done the work that needed to be done 2 weeks prior to that. So the window's now smaller, but the workload's the same. And as the weeks go by, if they're not managing their workload and it starts to back up, suddenly they've got this smaller window to get it done and this much work, and that's where they start to get really stressed. Okay. Oh. Oh, gosh, I wish I could answer all of these questions. If we could just keep this on here, and I'll see if I can get through more questions. What if a student needs to take some time off for a holiday, etc.? What do they need to do? They can apply for program leave. We encourage students to pre-plan and do this before census, but they can absolutely, a student can take up to a year off in total. They can do that in one lump time frame, or they can take one term off here in this year and another term off in another year. They have up to a year's program leave if they need to do that. They just need to be mindful of how that might impact their progress during their degree, that it'll change potentially their completion time and any other plans that they may have, just being aware of that. Would you recommend that if financially possible to encourage my child not to get a part-time job initially? It's a really individual decision. I wouldn't give advice on that either way. Students thrive in all sorts of scenarios. Some students work really well while they're studying. It also depends on the degree that they're doing. There might be degrees where you might think just focus on your studies is the best way to go for now. So that's a conversation you can have with them and something that you can work out with them. And again, take their lead, take on board the kind of workload they're looking at and how they're feeling about it, I think is probably a good clue. Any additional tips for parents that are interstate? Stay in touch. Invite them home. Go and visit them if you can. All of the above if possible. But stay present in the background, but stay present. And let them know that you're there in one form or another. And be interested in what they're doing. I just have a presence around you that's supportive. You can do that from, you can be living in the same city or you can be living on the other side of the country. Stay communicative with them and be interested in what they're doing, care about how they're feeling. I know you do, but sometimes we forget to say it. We forget to communicate that to them. Yeah. Okay. Gosh. Can I invite some questions in the room? Or do we need to finish up? Has anybody got some questions here? Okay. Are you hungry? Well, thank you for your time and attention today. I hope at least some of the information has been helpful. I'm going to hang around as well, so while you're grabbing something to eat and drink, I'd be very happy to have a chat to any of you one-on-one if you've got any questions as well. So thank you.
Huge thanks to Tracy for her invaluable advice. The time audit one, I have to tell you, I actually have to do that myself regularly because I kind of get myself into this position of going, where is my time going? I don't really understand, and I look at it and I put it all down and go, that's where it's all gone. So really encourage your students to take a look at where their time goes. For those that are here in person, we have arranged lunch and some tea and coffee outside in the Clancy foyer, so please feel free to help yourself to refreshments. If you are more serious about coffee than what we've laid out for you there, I personally think the best choices are downstairs to Cafe Brioso or Cafe Marionette, which is just behind this building here, so you might like to check those out. Your student will be locked in a session with their peer mentoring group and involved in activities until 2 p.m. So please feel free to take a walk around campus. I'm really excited that it's not pouring rain and thunder and lightning like was initially kind of part of the forecast for today. So you might want to have a relax on the lawn, find those library sleep pods, see if you need a nap, see if they work as well as they've been advertised. The library does have a huge collection of non-fiction and fiction and some exhibitions on level 2 and level 5 if you want to take a wander around those. And they're all open to the public. At 2 o'clock, you can feel free to meet your students down at the science lawn, where they'll be wrapping up with their peer mentoring activities. And please head on outside, grab some lunch, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.